Over the coming weeks, months and years, the wheel of time will become more apparent on my channel, but not in place of my normal topics of interest, rather in addition to them. I will highlight future podcasts with a Wheel of Time WoT signature. Those who are not fans or are not interested will be well informed and can easily avoid an hour of talk about a story you know nothing of. The Wheel of Time is a very personal story to me, and no doubt to millions of fans around the world. Clearly, I am not unique, therefore, in my appreciation of the story. I have, however, turned those pages with eager anticipation, emotion, and excitement, along with everyone else, and lost myself to the depth and breadth of the world that Robert Jordan created. The characters became my friends and my enemies. The missions formed my daily and nightly charges. The defeats saddened me. The victories urged me on and on and on. When the TV series comes out, I will watch it like the newest fan to observe the world I know so intimately come to life before my very eyes. How wonderful it will be to finally see old friends. The trailers and teasers have given us a view of what is to come, and I cannot wait. So here I talk with Drab, among other of my usual topics, about the Wheel of Time, as it is, after all, the one giant link that introduced us. Yeah, Drab, this is it's really kind of you to have accepted my invitation to do this podcast, especially as, okay, we've followed one another, I think, for a few months now, but we have absolutely zero concept of who the other is. And yeah, one of the benefits of social media is you get into contact with people who you do not really know. But we have obviously a common passion, which is for the Wheel of Time. And I thought we could perhaps explore that and a few other topics. So thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Now you're in California, so that means you are a number of hours behind me. So it's not perhaps the most convenient timing for you. So I have to thank you, doubly for your sacrifice to your convenience and comfort.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning, but I'm a bit of a night owl, so I'd be up right now anyway.
Yeah, but you're almost up 24 hours, it seems, on Twitter, unless you have people who take over your account, because you send messages and replies and likes and stuff at every hour of the day, don't you?
I recently tweeted, I've had a song stuck in my head. It's a Led Zeppelin song. It's like since I've been knowing you or something. And he's talking about like he has to work. Like he really loves this person, but he also has to work all the time. And it really makes him want to lose his mind because of like the stretch between desire and then like putting up with it. And so I really like the Wheel of Time, and it keeps me up at night, I have to say.
Yeah. I have to also say that one of the reasons that I really wanted to speak with you, perhaps above a lot of other, okay, I mean, you know that I've spoken with the Road to Tarvalon, Tracy and Amber in their podcast, because they're brilliant. I find their podcast is fantastic. But you also have this, you don't just simply agree with everyone. You also have a different opinion on a lot of topics. You have your own approach, but I also find all of your tweets to be respectful. How do you
I don't know about all that. Some of them are downright rude, but it's not on
really?
I'm pretty rude to a lot of people.
I haven't
And
seen it.
it may seem like I'm new to Twitter because sometimes I get fed up with my account and I'll delete it. So this most recent time, uh, I heard someone say "we" in a statement to me, like, "Hey, we have been talking," and at that moment, like my ears sort of perked up and I just got really paranoid, changed the name of my account, started a new account, took the name of my old account, and then deleted my old account, like in maybe 4 days.
Okay.
And I tried to notify the people that follow me, like, hey, follow me on my main account. And my expectations were met for how it worked out because I figured I would retain the number of followers that I would probably get likes on a pretty good tweet. And so it ended up like 17 out of like 350 followers were like, hey, we'll follow you on your other account. And then I just started back up, following people, getting to know new people, and all the people I used to know are still there on Twitter, but I haven't like gotten the numbers to approach them back and be like, hey, do you want to be mutual followers again? So if you look in the search for Twitter, you'll see like back to 2013 being like, you're so rude, like Drab. And then some of the other comments will be like, oh, you're really nice. So I can be rude, I could be nice, but it's not necessarily consistent.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I haven't read much of the rude ones. I guess I'll look out for them. But why did you get fed up then? Because I had a similar experience, and I've spoken about it a lot. And that's actually why I do this podcast, is because I got so pissed off with Twitter and the idiots on Twitter who are just there to be rude and aggressive. I don't mind people who are disrespectful because we see that all the time. But there are some people who just make threats, who are um, racist, sexist, and all of those things. I can't handle that. I don't want to see it. So I came off Twitter. But then I went back on because of this podcast, and I found the Wheel of Time community, and that was like a savior to me. So why did you get fed up? What was it really? What pissed you off?
Uh, I often see like racist or sexist remarks, or whatever kind of uh, remarks that may seem offensive. And usually I know if you just don't engage people, eventually they'll disappear. And if they do reappear in your life, it's not really going to be that big of a deal. But um, I was concerned with my most previous account, that my numbers were getting a little bit messed up. So when I looked at how my tweets were doing, like the numbers were starting to show like a downward trend, and I was kind of concerned about that. And then when I heard like when I heard the word "we" in a statement someone made to me, I was like, okay, this isn't just happenstance. Like it's not going to bounce back. I should just delete and restart because I don't want to have like a follower who's muting me. So they're like, hey, this is what I'm doing today. And then I comment on it, and then like I don't know it, but I'm on mute. And so why, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have said anything.
Mm.
Well, I just felt like I needed to start over and basically clear all my mutes and blocks and give myself another chance to have like good numbers when I interact with people.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Um, which we can then build a bit of a bridge to Wheel of Time, because there is quite a bit of difference. Now, I've heard of other communities on different platforms on Facebook and so on, which I'm not familiar with. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. So I don't know how these other communities are. But there does seem to be a little bit of, I wouldn't say necessarily hatred, but perhaps some people are a bit anxious about the diverse nature of the TV series. Some people are saying that it's not true to the Wheel of Time. And I'm of the alternative perspective, which is actually, it is a part of what Robert Jordan created. He did create a diverse world. The terminology is in there. And also he has left certain elements vague enough for the reader to be able to introduce their imagination. So where do you kind of stand on this particular issue?
As far as hearing complaints or whatnot about the authenticity of the books, the way I feel about it is the author wasn't just creating something from nothing. Like, it was a process and it involved many people. And from what I understand, if Team Jordan had not made certain boundaries for the author would have written a different story. So when it comes to, is the show authentic to the books, I think the fact that there's a team working on it is enough for me, because the last thing I would want is just one mindset coming up with the show. I would rather a team of people working together and being like, we're gonna, take some liberty with this, and we're gonna do this exactly word for word for the book here, and we're gonna take some liberty here, and come to those decisions as a team.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're completely correct, because there were, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of occasions where Harriet McDougall, the widow of Robert Jordan, she said that at the time there were occasions when there was a team that would fact check the chapters that he wrote. There were also, I suppose, there was some guidance from her and from perhaps the other members of the team with regards to the language used, the tone, or perhaps maintaining the consistency of the storyline, because we're talking about 14 books plus a new spring. It is very easy to lose the thread, isn't it, in that kind of that amount of words?
My understanding of Jordan, through hearing about the team and then also from reading both what he wrote and also what Sanderson wrote, is that everything is very modular. He's coming up with scenes out of sequence and then building something from those scenes. And I think that makes sense when you hear commentary about how well the books were written. And so as far as the editors coming back and saying like, oh, this fact checked, you put the characters in the wrong place. If you want, like, wouldn't it be better if they were in this place at that point in time? I think not only that, but like, you really should get a different perspective on what the character's thinking, because it's coming off as offensive. Or like, maybe you should write this scene from a different perspective so that the readers can actually feel for what's going on. And so as far as the book going to the show and being authentic, and then the book itself being authentic within its own bounds, it really takes a lot of work, specifically with the Wheel of Time, to make sure that you're doing things correctly. And stuff like, is the skin tone or the accent of the cast like authentic? Like, I could care less as long as they have the team fact checking the things that are actually important, like what stuff happened in what order, and why that order is important for the character plot line or the story plot line, or the feeling that you were supposed to feel when you came across the passage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I mean, there are lots of old sort of classic novels that we've perhaps read that go back 100, even just 60 years or 200 years or whatever. And right now, there is a debate within the educational system as to, okay, the language here has to be changed and these concepts have to be altered. When Robert Jordan first penned the Eye of the World, we're talking 1990, or when it was first published, at least. He started writing, I imagine, before then. Do you think the material stands up in a certain way? Because the main village members of the team, sort of Emmons fielders, there is a certain protective masculinity, isn't there, with regards to the Rand, Perrin, and Matt, perhaps a bit less with Matt, and with regards to Egwene, not so much Nine Youth because she's a force completely unto herself. But I mean, do you think that kind of it's not necessarily alpha male, but it's a very old-fashioned thing. Do you think that stands up in today's society?
The Eamon field, the way they interact socially didn't seem to stand out to me when I first read the books. It seemed very natural. And now looking back, I've heard some people say that it's antiquated, like the relationships between the sexes in the books was antiquated and needs to be updated or whatever. I think that the books are an abstraction and Eamon's Field is an abstraction, and we aren't necessarily getting the full picture of how these people would interact in any given situation. So I could easily see these sorts of interactions happening in my country, at least today, as well as in 1990, depending on where you are and what the context is. Having a group of men, like a men's club, interacting with a group of women in a women's club, these are like American sorts of things that still stick around today. Like I'm in a fraternal, or I have been involved in a fraternal organization for adults, like not like a fraternity for college students or whatever.
Mm.
And we have a sister organization, and there's women in our organization and men in theirs. And the sorts of coming to a consensus within your own group and then taking that consensus to others in the community to have events, work out problems between your community members and so forth. This seems very natural today and in 1990. So in other parts of the world in the Wheel of Time, people could do things differently, and then other parts of the world today, people definitely do things differently than that. But it feels natural now and
then. And are you involved in any of these other online communities, or do you? I mean, as I said before, you're practically constantly on Twitter of time. I mean, are you also involved in these other Facebook and Instagram and so on, or is that just too much work for you?
I don't have accounts for Instagram or Facebook, and I'm not on any Discord servers. And I kind of like going to YouTube kind of ticks me off a little bit, and going into Google podcasts to retrieve, like people will be like, oh, I'm on Podbean. And then I'll click on it. I don't want to download that. And then I'll go back out of the application into another application, search for it, find the whatever channel or station, and then listen to it. And really, I would rather just do everything on Twitter, because it's totally possible to have a sort of podcast like that. The only problem with Twitter is that they don't remember shit. And after 3 days, your podcast is gone forever into the past of your timeline, and it's really difficult to bring it back again, or annoying to your followers. Whatever.
Yeah, it is quite funny. When I go back to look at something that I've liked, it's almost impossible to find again, because in the passage of 3 minutes, I've perhaps liked 50, 60 things. And it's kind of tough to find something again. So I definitely agree with that perspective. But California is the birthplace of so many of these technologies and these sort of software behemoths. So I take it you don't like appearing on too many of them.
I'm not doing too well in life, I guess. So like kind of appearing to like the people from my own past and my own social life, like I'm at the bottom of the barrel here. So me appearing on any of these websites isn't really gonna do much for me. People are like, oh, he's still alive. Good for like, okay. But I I started on Twitter because I went to um, uh, Meetup. So I think it's still around. I don't know if I'm still on this website, but there's a website called meetup.com where you create an account, you put your interest in there. So I just bought this book on HTML and CSS. So I put down HTML and CSS. So I met a woman who was doing meetups, like you meet people in public at some event and you hang out with them. Uh, and she had these really great events where there was like free food and free beer and like these tech companies and everything was like comped. You like walk in the door and they give you like a badge and a lanyard. Like they just have these things for people who walk in the door. And I'm like, okay, great. Uh, and we did this whole thing in Twitter, like in the Twitter building in like 2012 or 2013. And I was sitting there with a beer, like learning how to make CSS snowflakes from someone who like wrote the CSS for it. And she was doing like a PowerPoint. And she was like, if you're all of you who are listening to this, if you're into HTML and CSS, you need to get on Twitter because this is where if something happens, like people will post it there and then you'll know. So start an account now and then you'll know exactly what's going on as it happens from now on.
All right. A couple of times you've mentioned this thing about numbers, and yeah, as I said, I have a slightly withdrawn view of what exactly the basis of Twitter may be, or even social media. I don't go after the numbers because I'm not sure if it's a natural representation of who I am. So, but I see it a lot. There are some people who have these accounts with, I don't know, 200,000 followers, and they say, okay, I'm going to boost some accounts, guys. So who needs a boost? And tell me what you have and so on. And there are lots of people sort of jumping up, me. Is that really I mean, because I have a feeling I don't correctly understand the role of social media within society, as it were, because for me it's just a community, and some community I share with, I spend time with, I'm entertained by, I mutually entertain as well. But is there also like a real life benefit to be generated from social media? As in, I can see in some cases, but do you know what I mean?
Yes. So the way I feel about my numbers or whatever is, am I in tune with my account? Like my account is tuned to something and I'm tuned to something. Can we bring our tunes together so that, you know, I feel like when I do things, it's working. And so when I talk about numbers, it's the impressions and engagements numbers that you get when you look at the little bar graph on your tweet. And so for me, what's important is like a logarithmic understanding of the numbers that you're looking at. So you have your base number, which is your number of followers. So at any given tweet that you tweet, you should expect 10% of your followers to have seen something that you posted. And then you should expect that 10% of them should engage with your tweet. And then if more people are, if you make an impression on a larger number of people, you should keep that logarithmic scale all the way down to your likes, so that your impressions, engagements, and your likes are all going 10%, 10%, 10%. And when even if like 100 people see my tweet, like I'm really hoping that there's 10 engagements, because I know if I'm not hitting that 10%, 10%, 10%, then I'm doing something wrong. And there is like an algorithm that goes along with it, where sometimes you get more, like a better than 10%. And then sometimes you get less than 10%. But as long as over the long run, you maintain your logarithmic sort of scaling to your content, then you're doing a good job at being like a Twitter person. And that's what I want to do a good job at being a Twitter person. And so that's important to me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think I've seen some of these statistics on a few of my tweets. The thing for me is, it seems as though it's because it's quite, I find it random, you know. So there are some tweets or some jokes that I've made perhaps, and I thought afterwards that was quite funny, and nobody likes it. And then I write something which is absolutely silly, and it's like 20 likes, you know. And so I feel like a bit like an Aiel, yeah, because nobody can understand my humor sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how I don't know how it works. I've given up with the calculations, but I just find it fun to be a part of some of these discussions, and that's what I go for now.
I really feel like you just have to keep on writing jokes. Like it doesn't, like if it's like, oh, that's a really great one. You just have to let it go. There's a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, this person I found on the internet, I want to follow them. They're just like me, and they seem about the same size, and they're just in the same things, and you follow them, and they're not interested in you at all, and you're just like, but why? And you like scream at the universe, but really you have to let it go, because there's more people that you're gonna like out there, and they're gonna like you back.
Yeah,
And then I
this
get my
income.
charging cord.
Sorry, yeah, sure. Yeah, this incarnation of Twitter for me is great, because like I said before, I didn't have a strategy. I joined Twitter in 2011 the first time around, and I basically kept with that same account for 8 years, and I built up so many different sort of groups with whom I interacted, and I had no concept of strategy, and I guess I still don't. But the only thing that keeps me on Twitter now is entertainment, interacting with people who I think if I were to meet in real life, I could hang out with, have a couple of beers with, and enjoy their company. And that's essentially the only metric which I use to interact with people on Twitter. I just want to keep it really simple. But also, I can't help the fact that I'm interested in, sociological issues, political issues. And so I have to also interact with these kinds of things. And I bring the two, the sort of fictitious element of my life along with the real elements. And I tie the two together. But you keep things separate then, if I'm not completely mistaken.
Yeah, I recently, since this is a newer account, I think September is when I started it. I haven't I haven't seen a lot of accounts for a while. And so someone retweeted the President of the United States. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this because someone I'm following retweeted it. And so I read it, and I was like, this has nothing to do with, I mean, if the president liked the Wheel of Time, then maybe I'd follow him. But, maybe I'd support him on his social issues or his economic plan or whatever, but he's not. So, I got to put the president on mute because I know nothing important is going to come out of his mouth.
You're a Californian. I thought that made you automatically blue, didn't it?
Actually, I've been registered as a Green Party voter since I was 18.
Cool.
The first president I voted for was Ralph Nader. And then I voted for a Green Party president since then. And my local politics has been very much like complaining about the environment and complaining about social issues. And like my congressperson is Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House in Congress, and I don't vote for her. I don't vote for her, which would probably make many people upset with me who would want to, vote for someone like that because, they think that this person is a good politician or whatever. But really, I have like a website that I go to that says like, we interviewed these candidates, or our party has done some research on, these issues. And I read the reports and I go like, well, the most important thing for me is, keeping planet Earth around for future generations, then, I gotta do something.
Mm. Yeah, I vote green as well here in Germany. Yeah, it's interesting though. I often, with some of the people that I work with, we talk about politics, and we obviously the USA does figure quite it's prevalent, shall we say, in the way that we do politics. Even in Europe, the USA has played a major role in European society ever since, I don't know how many years ago, but you could also talk about Marshall Aid and all that and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so when obviously Trump was in the White House and he was seemingly unhappy with the way NATO was going because of the lack of support of some European nations, and he was, quite sort of disrespectful with regards to these traditional allies. Obviously, the leaders of the European Union got pretty scared. So the traditional politicians are quite happy that they've got Joe Biden back, as in they've got Joe Biden back in a sense that they've got somebody who is a real politician back, as opposed to the rogue that was Mr. Trump. But I guess for you as an environmentalist, you're a little bit pleased that Trump didn't come back, but that's not enough, I guess.
I don't really. It's kind of brusque to say or whatever, but I really can't tell the difference between the two parties at this point because the results are pretty much the same. But my experience with European politics in the United States was because of some personal culture that I was engaged in. So I've used to, on previous accounts, follow Lithuanian politicians because my mother took me to a Lithuanian culture event and I met some people and they were talking about like how much the Lithuanian government invests in their diaspora or whatnot. And so I learned a little bit about what it's like to join the European Union, what sort of desires a nation might have in Europe, and then what sort of responsibilities these countries have to the European Union or whatever sort of trade agreement or military agreement that they want to get into. So specifically with Lithuania and the United States, while Lithuania was trying to get into the European Union, the United States was setting military spending goals for the country. And it really kind of blew me away that the United States has like more than 50% of its GDP going into the military, but just like all the other countries in the world are doing like 1 or 2%, and like pushing a country to go from 1% of their GDP to 2% of an investment in their military is like has politicians like pulling their hair out, and that was really an eye-opening experience for me to watch that going on live from my from my bedroom or whatever.
Mm, yeah, I mean, from somebody who views the U.S. politics from a distance, I think I'm inclined to have a similar opinion to you. Actually, I think the Democrats and Republicans are two sides of the same coin, and I think that ostensibly they are both funded by, lobbied by, and perhaps in some cases dominated by the same interests. Now, whether those interests are in Wall Street or in the ground somewhere in Texas, I think there are similar influences that influence those two parties. But so the Green Party is a thing in the USA. Do you think there is ever going to be an occasion where the USA moves from being a two-party system to multiple parties, which have a realistic, should we say, chance of getting into the White House?
Uh, I once heard a speech from Noam Chomsky, I think it was, and he was in like Austin, Texas or something. And he explained it in a way I really relate to. And he says that in the United States, there's only one party, and that's the Conservative Party. And there are two factions, the two parties, and they're not dissimilar, they're simply factional in that they have their own agreements with specific entities and individuals. They have specific interests in other countries. They have their own brand, and they aren't necessarily that different in terms of politics, but they are different in terms of their brands, and that is what makes the United States special, I guess.
Okay. And do you think there is a chance that the Greens would perhaps one day rival these two bullies of American politics?
So this most recent presidential election, the Socialist Party of the United States gave their endorsement to the Green Party candidates. And I was like, oh, that's, that's, significant that this long-standing party just, that definitely has its own brand. It was just like, there's nothing better than these two candidates that they put together. We don't have the budget to create presidential candidates, and they do, so we'll just support them because it is sort of a socialist agenda. So if there will ever be a chance for some other brand to, make its place in American politics, I really think there would have to be an investment made, like a monetary investment made, or there would have to be a financial benefit to it. So if there was some sort of new wave of caring about the earth and making money and helping out everybody, to the same degree somewhat, there would have to be a profit in it if it's going to happen in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And for you, just a very quick and easy question: what for you is funnier, that Trump called Biden a socialist, or that people actually believed it?
I think Trump calling Biden a socialist is funny. I think that's a good joke. Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that President Trump was good at, it was making fun of people.
Yeah, he was definitely the cheekiest guy to get into the White House. But yeah, it's strange though, isn't it, that the word socialist can be thrown at a Democrat when it's yeah, I don't see anything that the sort of Democrats have done over the last few years that would in any way be interpreted as socialism. So yeah, I don't know.
I think mostly the perspective of an average American voter who heard the word socialist, they would think in their mind spender. This person is a spender. They spend and they get no benefit from their spending, and they're spending my money. And that is what a socialist is: someone who spends the taxpayers' money on sorts of projects that don't get results.
Okay. A very interesting perspective. Yeah, I can tell obviously from your tone that the way in which you would view that perspective, it would be the same for me. It's quite strange because a lot of Americans love coming to Europe, and that's great. I think it's always cool when there is an interaction of cultures, and yet they surely are not aware that they are coming into the bed of socialism in many ways when they come to visit these countries. But it's never considered in that way. I don't know.
I would think if I went to Europe, I would think all of these people I'm seeing like are paying their taxes and the government is doing some stuff. Like I really wouldn't want to get into it. Like how much do they pay in taxes? How much stuff do they get? I'm sure if I fell down, I would want to, get medical help or whatever. But I wouldn't plan on falling down, and I wouldn't. I guess I wouldn't care.
Mm. I mean, just to give an example, so I don't know what life is like in the USA, but where I am in Germany, if you've been working, for example, and then you lose your job, um, you are given 1 year paid leave, as in you are covered by Social Security for 1 year. 6 months, you are paid, I think, 90% of your salary. And then the remaining 6 months, that drops down to 60% or something like this. And then after that, you can, if you haven't found a job within this period, and at the same time, the local sort of job authorities is trying to help you find a job, you can do training. And if you do a certain amount of further training, that qualifies you to an extension of that period where they are giving you financial support. And
I
they,
think it's
yeah.
I think it's a lot of very similar unemployment insurance. You pay into your unemployment from your paychecks, and then your employer matches that, and then it basically creates an account that you can draw from while you maintain whatever standards that the unemployment insurance office gives you. Like, have you applied for a job this month? Then you would have to show proof that you applied for a job and were rejected in order to receive your unemployment benefits.
So there is a certain amount of social support within the USA. It's not just, all right, you're on your own, but
There is a social safety net, but every year it becomes less and less meaningful to the average worker who is getting paid less in real dollars, as the years progress.
yeah, okay. I mean, because I read quite a bit about some of the social issues coming out of the USA, and people are very. It's amazing how polarized the view is of the same topic from some people from the same kind of area. So we talk about the minimum wage, and some people say, well, you can get at least a minimum wage here, and other people say, yeah, but that minimum wage, that doesn't get you far anyway. So that's not exactly something big to say that, oh wow, we paid a minimum wage. So but all of these things change state to state, don't they? So if you earn a certain amount in New York, you can perhaps live like a king if you're in, I don't know, Tennessee or whatever, but vice versa wouldn't necessarily work. I mean, I don't know. Is there an awareness of that kind of thing in the USA?
It's apparent to a lot of people. You need to spend a lot of money in rent or in commute time in order to make a good wage. The best paying jobs are going to be in urban centers, and as you go out, it becomes less and less beneficial. Like the same job at McDonald's in a city versus around where I live at 4,000 feet elevation. That's basic. I don't know what a foot is, but it's high. It's a high elevation in the mountains. And if you were to get a job here at McDonald's, you would be gaining like, you know, 2,000 feet of, you'd be gaining like half the elevation to the ocean every time you went to work, and you'd be driving for a while. And so how much are you going to spend in fuel to work at McDonald's here? And like you could basically walk to work in an urban center or spend, you know, $60 a week on gas in the country.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so all right, so you're quite high up where you are. Would that mean you're in the northern reaches of the state?
If you went 3 hours east on the highway from San Francisco,
Okay.
you would end up, you know, a stone's throw from my house on the highway.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I've often said San Francisco is the only city in the US that I would like to live in, as in cities. Yeah, and I haven't been to that many. So I mean, I've been to Orlando, New York. I've seen St. Louis, not really been there much. Los Angeles, Fresno. I can't remember where else. And of all of them, the only one that I really liked the feel of was San Francisco. It just seemed a bit friendlier and a bit more authentic. As an American, but also Californian, is San Francisco considered a bit more true to itself, a bit more authentic?
I was actually born in San Francisco,
Okay.
and I later moved here. I would say, in my opinion, as someone who has mostly been in the United States for their whole life, like San Francisco is the best city in the United States. If you go to New York, it's gonna be hot for half the year and then snowing the other half of the year. If you're in San Francisco, like it's cooler more often, but now that global warming is happening, there's like, you can go to the beach. So like in the same day, you could be wearing, you know, tennis shoes, jeans, and a sweatshirt, and then you take the streetcar up to the beach and you could wear a bikini. So it's got really great weather. People complain that it's dirty, but that's really just the flat area around down, like basically any lowland part of the city is going to be, you know, dirty, because it's an excellent place to live if you don't have a roof or any property. Like you could seriously live in San Francisco year round in, you know, sneakers, jeans, and a sweatshirt. But there are so many ways to walk around the city, and there's so many little nichey like neighborhoods where no one ever goes there because there's no road that will get you to where you're going fast. So, and there's hills all over the place that are in the way. So if you walk around San Francisco, there's a lot of different sites that you can see, and the weather is getting hotter as the years go by, but there's still a lot of fog and a lot of overcast skies, and you can feel comfortable for a large part of the year as far as like temperature and weather goes. And it's like there's all these tech companies there, and there's all these jobs doing all these exciting things. So if you're talented and you're willing to like bust your ass, then it's an excellent place to live your life.
Yeah, I was there 21 years ago. That was back in 2000. I was there. I think it was 2000. It may have even been 1999. I can't remember exactly, but some time ago. I don't know if those tech companies were there at that time necessarily. Maybe they emerged a bit later, but it just seemed like such a welcoming, friendly place. Where I mean, and this is because of my interactions with the people in the shops, as in and in the cafes. People just talk to you, and you sort of walk past them, you say hi. Whereas I think in LA, if you looked at someone the wrong way, then you weren't going to get a hello. Completely different experiences.
I think it's retained a bit of that. My parents' neighborhood, my dad lives there now. It's like got so many baby carriages, and there's so many cafes and like organic supermarkets, and like you don't see the same corporate sort of businesses like on every corner. And there's a lot of residences and schools and like religious buildings. So it's definitely still like a two-story sort of neighborhood where all like 90% of the buildings are 2 stories and they're all stuck together. So I think it's easy to feel like you belong to the area you are, probably because of the density and the out of the wayedness of this neighborhood where my dad lives.
Okay, all right. So that's not necessarily downtown, but I guess it's not too far then, I imagine, from being. I mean, how long would it take to get into the center of San Francisco from where your father lives?
Let's see, it might take a 10-minute walk to the light rail, and then if the light rail is in fact working, because they're constantly like redoing the streets and stuff, but 10-minute walk, and then you might wait another 10 minutes, and then maybe half an hour to 45 minutes
Okay.
on the light rail, and you're on the main street. We don't have like branches or whatever that go around the downtown, but you would be on the main street. And San Francisco's a small city that's like 7 by 7 miles, so it's a convenient sort of walking city after you use the transportation they have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, and one more question, and I'll just bring us back to our sort of original topic, which is the Wheel of Time. How much are you looking forward to the show?
I feel like I'm back in it, in the Wheel of Time. It hasn't been that long since the last book came out, and like the Wheel of Time has come to me in waves in my life, where I read the first like 4 books once, and then I bought the hardbacks every few years and then reread all the books. And so you forget about it, and then you're reminded, and then you come back to it, and then you're just ready to put your boots on and get on the road with these characters and the author or the showrunner or whatever. I'm ready. I'm prepared. I know what's going on, and I'm ready.
Well, I mean, there's less than 3 weeks now. So tomorrow it's the 1st of November. So we're in the Wheel of Time month. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm ready for it. Let's get it on. Cool. All right. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Cool. Drab, thank you, man. That's yeah. I guess I don't know if you knew what to expect. I had no idea what to expect from our interaction, but there are lots of areas that we are also in agreement with, even with regards to politics. And I can't say that with every American I come across. So that in itself is interesting. Yeah, it'll be great if we can also like talk again, maybe when the show is out, get some of your thoughts on that. Yeah. So it wasn't too difficult an experience for you talking to this Brit.
Not at all. I think I do have some food in like cooking slowly in my toaster oven right now, so I should probably get back to that at some point.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope it's all good then. Thanks a lot, and I'll let you know when the podcast comes out.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure.
Two, and a mic. Two, and a mic. Two.